Hi guys, and welcome back to class. As of now, we are done with the last module, which was All Quiet on the Western Front. Everyone should be at the new book, which is A Midsummer Night's Dream. If you haven't picked that book up from home or from school, please have a parent or someone, either you can contact me or you can contact the school to schedule a time for when you can come and pick up the novel. So to start off, we're going to start off by defining a concept. I want you guys to write a 3 or 4 sentence response to the following question. How would you explain the idea of love to an alien on their first day on Earth? For this lesson, our focusing and content framing question is, how do the characters in A Midsummer Night's Dream understand love? And we're in our content framing question for lesson 1, which is in our wonder stage. What do I notice and wonder about A Midsummer Night's Dream? The first thing I want you to do is underline 2 nouns or adjectives from this response question that you just answered. If you're at home, you can just type in those nouns or adjectives that you wrote in your response question. Then I want you to look at your responses and ask yourself, why do you think that it is an important or interesting question to study? Why is this question interesting or important to study? Now I want you guys to add the word universal to your novel or to your journal. The word universal has 2 different meanings. One is of having to do with or a characteristic of a whole world or the world's population, or in other words, global or worldwide. And universal meaning it is for or affecting everyone. Based on your shared words, do you think your understanding of love is a universal experience? Do you think that love is universal? In this module, we are going to examine the essential question, which is, what is love? And we're going to be studying a play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, by a writer named William Shakespeare. In the first focusing sequence, you will begin examining love and whether or not there is a universal understanding of love by exploring how Shakespeare's characters understand love. I want you to first read aloud the first stanza of A Midsummer Night's Dream, from Now Fair Hippolyta to Young Man's Revenue, 1.1.1 through 6. And I want you to attempt to pronounce every word, and I want you to notice where you struggle. Don't worry if you don't understand all of the words yet. We're going to get to that point. For those of you who are online, I'm going to include a recording of this play so that you guys can have that as well. Then I want you guys to ask yourself, what do you notice about the language and the words that Shakespeare uses? English language has changed, and it has developed a great deal since that time. If you met someone from Shakespeare's time who was speaking English, you might have trouble understanding one another because their English was much different than what and how we speak today. Given this distance from the time that Shakespeare was written, you might find that reading Shakespeare is very challenging and it can be very frustrating. And people can spend their entire lives trying to study Shakespeare, and it's extremely difficult for people to understand him at any age. So it doesn't matter how old you are, Shakespeare can be quite difficult. But despite these challenges, Shakespeare has remained one of the most enduring writers in the English language, meaning he's been the most loved writer. And people have been reading and performing and discussing his plays for many, many years, centuries even. Shakespeare wrote some of the most beautiful, rich, and complex texts that we have available for us today, and he is one of the most important and influential figures in literature. When you understand Shakespeare, it opens you up to a world of possibilities and connections with literature. So the first thing that I want you guys to do is I want us to establish some normalcies. I don't want you to feel like you need to understand every word or line of the play on your first try, but I do want you to engage in a productive struggle. And I do want you to make an effort to stay engaged with the text when you encounter frustration. And as always, you must ask for help when you need it. For those of you who are online, my office hours are still the same, 11:22 a.m. to 12:06 p.m. So, to go through our notice and wonder chart, I want you guys to ask yourselves, what do you notice and wonder about the title of the play? What does the page show us about the characters? So I want you to look at page 3. What does that page show us about the characters? You're going to write that under your notice section. What do you wonder about the play based on the character list? You'll write that in your wonder section. How do you think the character list relates to the title of the play? Does the list resolve any questions you have or raise any new ones? And what do you notice about the text features in Midsummer Night's Dream? You'll put this in your notice section. There will be a document inside of Schoology for you to type into your notice and wonders for this exercise. Then I want you to ask yourself, what is the purpose of the left-handed pages? Whenever you encounter an unknown word or phrase, you should try to determine the word in context first, using your context clues before you go to a dictionary. I want everyone to turn their pages to 7 of A Midsummer Night's Dream and mark down lines that are defined in the notes with an N and lines that are not defined with an X. So for example, if there is a word that you don't know but you see it in the glossary, you would write N. If there's a word that you don't know but it's not inside of the glossary, you would write X. You are writing this inside of your books. Then I want you to ask yourself, what do you notice about the number of definitions in the notes section? Then ask yourself, and look at this line, now fair Hypatia, our nuptial hour draws on apace, 1.1.1. The way we cite lines in a play can also be a tool to help you find the exact line that you are referring to. So, the first number is going to indicate the act that you're in. So here, this is Act 1. The second number indicates the scene. So this is Act 1, Scene 1. And the third line is indicating the line. So this whole thing is Act 1, Scene 1, Line 1. Now that you've learned how to use a citation, because that's what this is, now that you've learned how to do a citation, I want you to answer these questions using your citation as your evidence. Text features will be very useful for determining definitions of unusual words or unknown words and phrases, and it's going to help you get a general gist or a general overview of what's happening in the play. However, text features do not replace close reading, but they can clarify any challenging passages that you may have. A play is a unique narrative text or story text that is written for performance. If you are watching a play, they would have other cues such as the actor's body language or the set design or to help them understand what is happening. Throughout this module, you are going to have an opportunity to view a recorded performance of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Because there are no descriptions of the settings or the events in the printed text of A Midsummer Night's Dream, you have to pay more close attention to the dialogue to understand what's happening and to the meaning of the figurative language to infer what people are thinking and feeling. So now I want us to read to understand characters. Read aloud Act 1, Scene 1 from lines 1 through 20. And I want you guys to ask yourselves, what do you notice and wonder about Theseus and Hypatia? And who are Theseus and Hypatia? What are these characters saying to one another? Remember that in a play, the dialogue between the characters provides insight into their thoughts and how they feel about a situation or a particular person. So it's very important to pay attention to dialogue because it usually tells us a lot about what's happening with the text or the person. Now I want you guys to record 2 inferences about Theseus and Hypatia's relationship. What do you think their relationship is? Do you think it's a good or bad relationship? What type of relationship do they have? Make an inference, 2 of them to be exact, and share down in the discussion board. Then I want you to ask yourself, when was this play published? To gain helpful background information about William Shakespeare, it's really good to conduct some brief research so that you can understand who wrote the text. To start off with our research, we're going to ask ourselves, when was this play first published? You can find this on page XLVIII, an introduction to this text. Now I want you guys to look at these questions here that I have. I want you to choose one question, and you're going to research this question. The questions you have is, what is known about William Shakespeare and why do we still read his plays? Where were Shakespeare's plays originally performed and how did people at the time think about the plays and theater? And how did people in Shakespeare's time understand the language he uses in his play? Is this how people talked at that time? Here are some links for where you can find some of this information. I'll have these links inside of Schoology so that you can answer your research questions. Please feel free to use outside sources as well, but make sure that they are verifiable and accurate sources. To end this lesson, I want you to ask yourself, what do I notice and wonder about A Midsummer Night's Dream? For homework, I want you guys to reread Act 1, Scene 1, lines 1 through 20, and also continue your research to share out tomorrow. Now moving on, let's look at our vocabulary deep dive. Today, we're looking at interrupters. To remind us of what an interrupter was, in case you all have forgotten, interrupters are a size in a sentence that add additional information, but are not essential to the main clause. Interrupters can be a word or a phrase, such as however or for instance, or they can add more specific information. Interrupters are punctuated with 2 commas. The subject and the predicate of the sentence can be separated by an interrupter, framed by 2 commas that should never be separated by only 1 comma. So after examining the first features of the text on the lines that we've read so far for this play, what functions of the comma do you predict will be the most common in this play? So, Act 1, Scene 1, lines 1 through 20, I want you to read them aloud and circle all the commas. You'll do this inside of your book. Then I want you to identify the function of each of the comma and write in your notes what that function is. Why is the comma there that you found? Then I want you to look at this line. Act 1, Scene 1, line 3. Why is Theseus saying "oh" here? These lines show how the comma functions to emphasize interrupters. Interrupters are words and phrases that interrupt the thoughts in a sentence, but are not essential to the main idea. Now I want you to look at these 3 sentences, and I want you to tell me what is the function of each of these commas. Why are these commas being used? Why are they here? You'll answer this in the discussion board inside of Schoology. Once again, if you have any questions, please come to office hours. I'll see you guys soon.